like a year and a half since we met.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another soulful conversation with another soulful hero. I'm speaking today with my friend for over 30 years, Lynda Allen, whom I know as Linda Sloan, so maybe Linda Sloan Allen. She's the owner of Make Your Mark in Life Learning Center. And we're going to be speaking today about purpose and legacy. So welcome, whether you're watching this live on Facebook or whether you're going to be watching the recording. I'm so glad you're here. And welcome, Lynda.
I'm glad to be here.
So let's start right in the beginning. And by the way, how long have we known each other?
We figured out it's like over 30 years.
30, yeah, more like probably
And we
35.
reconnected, I was just saying, like a year and a half ago.
That's amazing.
We reconnected.
Yeah, yeah. So let's dive right in, and let's start talking about life purpose, which I know it's a question or an issue, an energy for so many people. Knowing what it is and how do we know? And I read something that you wrote somewhere, that you said, "I believe I was born to be a teacher." How did you know that?
I knew I was supposed to be a teacher when I was like 5. I
How
used
did you
to
know?
I used to play. My parents had those little school desks, one for each of us, and it was back up against each other. And I used to make my sister was a year younger than I was, and I would be the teacher and she would be the student. And when she wouldn't do what I wanted her to do, I would put a dunce cap on her and I would make her sit in the corner.
That is so funny and very telling as well, because in my life purpose retreat and work, that's one of the questions I ask people to help them figure out what their purpose is. And the question is, how did you play as a child? So boom, you did that.
And yes, it was just always so natural for me, like to be teaching. And then when I was about 12 or 13, I I had always been really curious about how people acted with each other, and I was always like teaching people that they should accept everything that people the way that they are. This is the way they're born. And I would notice how people would act with special needs kids or people that were kind of learning different or even look different. And that used to really bother me a lot because it was also I had some differences about me that was also that I would get ridiculed about.
Mm.
And so that was like this mission that I had. And so it was a natural thing for me to actually end up playing with special needs kids at a summer camp. And that
As
went
a
on to
teenager.
become a love of teaching,
Uh-huh.
especially kids that were so learning different. And I ended up going
You
on
got
to school.
your master's degree in, right?
That's
Special
right.
education.
I actually went on to get my master's, but I was one of the first special education teachers in the US.
Wow, that's amazing.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and that says so much about that sensitivity that you even had as a child, which I've always seen in you, and
Yeah.
that inclusiveness and that compassion. Um, and I think you told me once that it wasn't until I don't remember the date when that special education was even included in the public education system in the U.S. When was that?
Right. It wasn't until the late 70s that we
70s.
even brought that in because the civil rights movement actually allowed people of color to go to public schools. Well, then when that happened, the law came out in 1973 that let special needs kids be allowed into the schools. But so
Fascinating.
they only took and that was the public schools, of course, and then private schools would follow. But we were really busy trying to integrate our schools, and so they were not at the top of the list. So it's definitely been a process. It's been 50 years that we've been noticing that we've been accepting that. Guess what? Everybody learns uniquely and differently. Like it's not really a big surprise.
No, and what an important understanding it is for all of us
Yeah.
to have gotten to that point. And so I want to go back to this, and I want to talk about this new project that focuses on this, that is so interesting and exciting. Before we wander away from the question of purpose, because I mean, like I've heard so many people come to my retreats who used to stack up their animals, lined up their dolls and their stuffed animals and teach. And so I really do believe that it is something that you're born with. You also speak about a kind of broader way of holding life purpose, which is that you help, and that is, and correct me if I'm misquoting you, but is that it's to help others to see their own magnificence.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Yes. So what I found myself doing is that I worked for almost 45 years. I've worked in some kind of nonprofit or organization that worked with people that were different in some way. And usually, including myself, it was because they didn't believe in themselves. They didn't think they could do it. They didn't fit in. They beat to a different drummer. And that is exactly what happened for me. So it wasn't until I had done this and was successful in working with people individually and in groups, and because I just had this natural teaching ability, that I think the thought and the heart that I just wanted everybody to be accepted, including me. And I worked with a person who helped me figure out my life purpose.
Hmm.
And it was that and you were right, it is that I help people see their own magnificence. And the other part was for me, and in so doing, seeing my own.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that we teach what we need to learn most. So
Yeah.
this that I've been teaching my whole life has been really about how me becoming the best that I could be and how I could help and serve more.
Yeah, and since I've known you, you've always been on that journey, as have I, and that broader purpose resonates so much with me, because I think of myself as one of my gifts is to evoke people's innate essence that's, cut through all the muck and all the crap and all the conditioning and all the misunderstandings and all the lies that we have taken on about ourselves, and allow that inner essence to shine through. So I totally resonate with that.
Mhm.
And when we met, 35 years ago, we were both working at a psychiatric and addictions hospital. And I know that that's also what you do in terms of your one-on-one coaching. Are you still doing that?
It's, anybody that's like kind of lost and stuck and not able to get to where they want to be. Sometimes it's that. Usually, it's some way that they're thinking or being in their life. So yeah, I've worked with that. Also, I just have a different frame for how I
Mm.
do that. I mostly do tutoring these days and life coaching. And of course, I definitely have gone back to my roots of working with special people that are special learning. I like to call it learning different, learning challenged, learning
Mhm.
disabled, special needs learners, or exceptional students, because that's a growing number in our world today, all over the world.
Yeah, I've heard that term more recently, that different learning,
Mhm.
which really captures it. So tell us a little bit about your new project, this Make Your Mark in Life Learning Center.
So I've had Make Your Mark in Life Learning Center for 16 years, going on my 17th year. And I always had this unique way of tutoring and working one-on-one. In fact, I bought this company from somebody else, and they always did group tutoring, and a lot of programs do that. But you can't bring out someone's significance if you only do, if you do it in a group, especially for kids that are learning. So it's always been about empowerment for me. And for sure, working with kids that are learning different, there's a whole other realm that happens within the family. And it usually falls on specifically the mom, but sometimes both parents. And so, in working with the kids that I work with, that I've always worked with, I've always used the same process. And I started to realize that that process empowered the parents to be able to help their kids. And I've worked with kids for so long that I have all these kids that are having kids, and it's amazing because I don't have my own children. So I've been in their lives for a really long time and helped kids succeed in ways that nobody else had done. So I had this vision that what if I was able to empower parents all over the world that had a learning disabled, special needs learning kid. And what if we all got together in that new vision of possibility? What could happen when a tipping point happened? What would happen to how they were perceived? Different people everywhere, how they were perceived, how they were cared for, and how they were educated. And I realized this is what I have to do. It's now like I'm going into my 7th decade of life. And now I'm seeing this as leaving a legacy.
I love that. I want to talk about legacy and what that means to you, and how this is it a new project? Is it a new expression of make your mark in life, or is it a completely new, different thing?
It's a completely new, different thing, because what I'm going to be doing is very little make your mark in life learning, which is working one-on-one with families in all different kinds of way, online but mostly in person. And I've created a product. It's not ready to go on the market yet, but it will be within the next month or so. And it's a video presentation alongside a workbook guide journal that I created. It's about 9 hours to do this process. It's very immersive. And it is literally set up. It's going to be a very inexpensive product. I'm going to put it out for $97. It's a reusable product, and it's going to help parents go through a process, a 4-step process that I've been using for many years, that actually helps them get really clear about who they need to be for their child to handle any kind of life circumstance, whether it is going through school, whether it is going through a medical issue, going through a legal issue. They have to deal with all of those things, or independent living, or getting a job and keeping a job. But we're going to focus on schooling because it's a lot of our time. And so they're going to figure out their role. They're going to figure out really what's going on with their kid and what are the possible solutions that maybe others have not thought about because they are wiser, because they know their child. Then becoming aware of all the available resources, and everywhere around the world there are available resources that people do not realize that they're there, and people aren't not used to asking or getting help with. And finally, it's about pulling us together, very much like our personal growth process, right? We cannot do it alone. We have to be connecting with others. So it helps them really create their own tribe, their own team, their own village.
Beautiful, Lynda. And is this transition from one-on-one tutoring to one-to-many impact? Is that what you mean by legacy? And how did you move from one to the other?
Well, and again, what I wanted to be able to leave was, so I looked it up and they said something like there are 240 million families around the world that are impacted by having a learning disabled or special needs child.
Wow, 240 million. It's amazing.
And that was through UNICEF, I think gave that, because I don't know that they quantify that as much, right? And of course, just like our elderly, our special needs and disabled population are living longer also. So the kind of things that we used to not worry about, we worry about a lot more now. So I'm really focusing my energy on this. I can't imagine turning away. I've never been able to turn away students that needed me for tutoring or something in my community. But I have a feeling that what'll happen is that more and more people will be doing this empowered experience. I'm going to have a Facebook community support group so that they keep on being in touch with each other. And I don't know where it'll go from there, but my goal is to totally empower them enough that they can find their own Mrs. Lynda. That's what my kids call me, that they'll find their own Mrs. Lynda, because that's how I've helped people in the past.
Mm.
They can't do it alone. That's the big thing. So it'll be a legacy. And what I imagine that, when there's 1,000 people in Australia that's doing this, that has done this program, I just might have to go visit and meet them at the local Starbucks. And then I get to see myself traveling around the world, just leaving this. So that's what I see as a legacy. So, like, when I'm done, when I'm not working at this anymore, I'm really making an impact. That's always been my desire.
I love it. And legacy is a word that is so resonant for me too, and that I've been starting to think about. And for me, part of, after doing retreats, live events for, 30 years, March 2020 happened. And like many of us, I had to pivot and develop what I'd known for years I needed to develop, which was virtual online programming for people who may never be able to come or choose to come to one of my retreats. Was that part of what transitioned you and evolved you from one to one to one to many?
Absolutely. I had actually been thinking about it before the pandemic, and I had signed up with a group, and I was trying to work with special learners online. And I didn't love it at all. And I was thinking, but this is the way I'm going to travel around the world, because I want to spend my years traveling. I want to just live in places for 1 to 3 months at a time and just really learn those cultures and then go see how they do this. That's how I always did my traveling too. I always find out everything that was going on in their education systems before, right? So now I just wanted to see, how can I empower parents just for this ending part, but it wasn't going to happen through that online thing. But so for the last 3.5 years, which is part of the way that I came into with you, I was watching one of your summits, and I was so turned on to you interviewing, and of course I loved you. And so, and then when we saw each other, and so I came in and I did your AIT, the Adventures in Transformation, and I focused on this. And I've all through this time, and for the 2 years before that, I've been working on how to do something online. And now I've created actually the help, because I think I've identified this next calling for me, this next mission. And so, of course, the help is showing up.
Mm. And so talk about that. Talk about, for somebody who might be watching this, and I know so many people in this community share that sense of mission, that sense of making a difference that you and I so deeply resonate with. So for somebody who may still be in the observation or the pondering, or how can I possibly even begin to think that I could do something like this, like what you're talking about, what words can you of support, of inspiration can you share with them in terms of staying with your dream and bringing that dream, that mission forth?
It's a good question. I think, what comes to mind is what I say to my students. I work with a lot of kids that are getting ready to go on to their careers. They need to pass these things called SATs and ACTs in order to get into college. And of course, that's a really big difference of time. And it's what we've all gone through. And what I like to say is that up until then, life has happened to you, but somewhere in the process of high school, you're getting into the position of making life happen. And so what I say to them is, I know you have some thoughts about what you're supposed to do, because many come in and they don't. I know you have some thoughts about where you want to be. And again, many of them don't. But I also say, you might even have those thoughts, but you know what? There is so much magic, so many miracles, so many possibilities, so many opportunities out there. There is one thing that has been chosen for you.
Mm.
Just like I had that vision, that magical feeling when I was younger, I'm supposed to teach and I'm supposed to be with these kids that are different. You follow that and the pieces fall into place. And I've had so many kids come back to me with that. Because we all have, and I also heard this from some motivational speaker that why should you be talking to other people about what your vision is, what your mission is, what you've been put your life purpose is? God gave it to you.
That's right.
Spirit gave it to you. No one else could possibly understand what you've been given. And
Or express it in the same unique way, you know, so that so many people in this community, or coaches or counselors or therapists, or want to be doing the kind of work that you and I are so fortunate and blessed to do. And the thing is that, you know, like 4 people that I can think of just from the last couple of years of doing AIT, the Adventures in Transformation, who had their certification, in one case for 8 years, and yet had done nothing with it yet. And part of what I think we're all called to do is, like, it's all hands on deck now. We no longer have the time to wait for another certification. And that's what programs like AIT are supposed to do, or the coaching that people can do one-on-one with you, is to remove the obstacles, the self-doubt, and transmuting that into self-confidence. When you were speaking right now, I had this image, you know, that I often think about, which is that movie Indiana Jones, where he's standing on this side of the cliff, this endless chasm, on the other side of which is the Holy Grail, whatever it was that he was looking for. And it's not until he figures out that he has to take that first step into the void that the bridge, the stone, shows up to meet his foot. And that's what I came to mind as you were encouraging people. Lynda, thank you so much. We're keeping these intentionally short, to make it more doable. We know how busy everybody is, so thank you so much for your time, for sharing your wisdom and your passion and your beauty. I feel blessed to have had this time with you.
Me too, you.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you
thank
so
you
much.
everybody. Thank you everybody for watching this, whether live or later they're watching the recording. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, wherever you are in the world. And until next week, much love.
Thank